Claire sat on the edge of her small bed with her phone in her hand. The house was quiet except for the soft breathing of her little daughter Lily in the next room. The bills were on the table, a pile that seemed taller every week. The rent was due, the electricity bill was waiting, and her old car had broken down again. She rubbed her eyes, tired from working 2 jobs that never seemed enough. She felt like she was running in circles, never catching up. She thought about her brother, the one person she trusted to lean on when things got heavy. He had helped her before, though he had his own struggles. Still, she hoped maybe he could send her a little money until her next paycheck came in. With her heart pounding, she opened her phone and began to type. The words came from a place of pure exhaustion and fear. She wrote about being behind on bills, about Lily needing new shoes, about feeling like she was failing as a mother. Eyes filled with tears as she pressed send. She put her phone down and covered her face with her hands. It was hard to admit how low she felt. She tried so hard every day to stay strong for Lily, to smile, and laugh so her daughter never knew the full weight of their struggles. But tonight, the mask had slipped. The message was raw and desperate, but it was the truth of her heart. In another part of the city, Ethan sat alone in a large apartment that felt more like a museum than a home. The rooms were filled with expensive art and tall windows, but no laughter or warmth. He had money more than he ever needed, yet he often wondered what it was worth when he had no one to share it with. His phone buzzed, and he picked it up expecting some routine business message. Instead, he saw words filled with pain and honesty from a number he did not know. He read the message slowly. He could almost hear the voice of the woman behind the words, trembling and tired yet full of love for her child. He leaned back in his chair and stared at the screen. He was not the kind of man who received such messages. Most people around him wanted deals or favors, not trust. But this message was different. It was meant for someone else, that much was clear. Still, it stirred something deep inside him. Back in her little house, Claire waited for her brother to reply. She checked the phone again and again, but there was no answer. She sighed and whispered to herself that maybe he was busy. She stood up and looked in on Lily, who was asleep with her small hand holding her stuffed bear. The sight gave Claire both comfort and sorrow. Lily was her whole world, and Claire worried she was not giving her the life she deserved. Her phone buzzed. She looked down and frowned at the name on the screen. It was not her brother. She opened the message, her eyes widening. The words were gentle and kind, written by a stranger who had received her desperate plea. For a moment, she felt her cheeks burn with shame. She had poured her heart out to the wrong person. She wanted to hide, but at the same time, she felt a strange sense of relief that someone had read her truth. She did not know who he was, and he did not know her beyond a single message. But in that quiet night, 2 lives had crossed by mistake, and something invisible had begun to stir between them. Claire stared at the phone in her hand. The message from the stranger was still on the screen. It was short, just a few sentences, but it carried warmth she had not expected. He had written that he was sorry for what she was going through, that she should not feel ashamed for being tired, and that she was stronger than she believed. She read it again, not knowing if she should reply or just forget it ever happened. She sat down at the small kitchen table, the dim light above her casting shadows on the bills. She thought about how strange it was to pour her heart out to a man she did not know. Her brother still had not replied, and now this unknown person had reached her first. Her pride told her to stay quiet, but her loneliness told her to answer. Finally, with trembling fingers, she typed a simple thank you and pressed send. Ethan was sitting by the window of his apartment when the reply came. He had not expected her to answer. He opened the message and felt a small smile spread across his face. The thank you was plain, yet it carried more weight than the praise he often received from people who wanted something from him. He leaned back in his chair, wondering what kind of woman had written to him by mistake. He could almost see her, tired but still fighting, fragile yet brave. He typed again, asking if she was all right. He kept his words simple, not wanting to scare her away. He hesitated before pressing send, worried she might think him strange, but something inside told him to reach out. When the message went through, he placed his phone down and waited. In her small house, Claire read his new message. She felt her chest tighten. No one had asked her that in a long time, not with real concern. She wanted to brush it off, to pretend she was fine, but she could not bring herself to lie. She wrote back that she was just tired, that life felt heavy sometimes, but she would keep going for her daughter. She mentioned Lily's name without thinking, and when she sent the message, she worried she had said too much. Ethan read about Lily and paused. He imagined a little girl with bright eyes who depended on her mother for everything. Thought about his own childhood, about the silence of a big house without warmth. He felt something stir in him, a pull he could not explain. He wanted to know more about this woman and her child, but he did not want to cross her trust. So he replied with gentle words, saying that Lily was lucky to have a mother who fought so hard. Claire felt her throat tighten when she read his reply. She had heard many harsh words from people who judged her life, but rarely kindness. She looked over at Lily's room and felt a tear slip down her cheek. She wiped it quickly and typed back a small smile in words, thanking him again. She told herself she would stop there, that she did not need to share more with a stranger, yet deep down she knew she wanted to keep talking. Through the night, small messages passed between them. She told him she worked 2 jobs and barely slept. He told her he worked long hours too, but often felt empty despite his success. She did not know what kind of job he had, and he did not explain, but it did not matter. Their words were not about details. They were about connection, about 2 lonely hearts meeting in the dark by accident. When the clock passed midnight, Claire finally put her phone down. She whispered goodnight to the stranger, though she did not even know his name. She lay beside Lily, who stirred in her sleep, and for the first time in weeks, Claire felt the edge of her loneliness softened.
Ow.
She closed her eyes with the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, this mistake had happened for a reason. The morning sun came through the thin curtains of Claire's small home. She woke to the sound of Lily laughing in the living room. The little girl had turned on the old radio and was dancing to the music, her bare feet tapping on the floor. Claire smiled at the sight, though her heart still carried the weight of bills and long hours. She joined Lily for a moment, spinning her around until the laughter filled the house. It was moments like this that gave her strength. When Lily was busy drawing at the table, Claire checked her phone. There was another message waiting. The stranger had written again, asking if she had managed to rest. She felt a strange warmth spread inside her. She did not know why this man cared, but she liked that someone did. She wrote back that she had slept a little and thanked him for asking. Then she put the phone away, telling herself not to depend on him. Ethan read her reply while sitting in the back of his car. He was on his way to a meeting wearing his usual dark suit, but his mind was not on business. The driver glanced at him through the mirror, surprised to see his boss smiling at a phone screen. Ethan had not smiled like that in years. He typed another message, but stopped himself. Did not want to push her. He let her words rest with him like a secret. As the days passed, the messages grew longer. Claire found herself looking forward to the soft buzz of her phone. Ethan listened to her stories about long shifts at the diner, about Lily's drawings, about the way the old car coughed every morning. He never told her about his wealth or his company. Instead, he shared simple pieces of himself, like his love for reading late at night, or the way he enjoyed walking alone by the river. Their words began to weave a thread between them, thin but strong. Then came the evening when Claire's door broke.
Ow.
The old hinge finally gave way, leaving the front door unsteady. She tried to fix it with a screwdriver, but nothing worked. She sighed, worried about leaving the door like that when she had to go to work. She wrote a quick message to the stranger, not asking for help but simply sharing her frustration. She put the phone down and went back to Lily, deciding she would deal with the door later. Ethan read her message while standing in his apartment. Something stirred in him. He imagined her struggling with a broken door, tired after a long shift, and he could not sit still. For years he had solved problems with money and business, but this was different. This was about showing up. Without overthinking, he made a decision that surprised even himself. The next day, Claire was cleaning up after breakfast when a knock came at the door. She froze, confused, since few people ever visited. Lily ran to the door, curious, and called for her mother. Claire opened it carefully, and her breath caught. There stood a tall man with kind eyes, holding a small toolkit in his hand. He introduced himself as Ethan. She recognized the name from her phone. Her heart raced. For a moment, she did not know what to say. The stranger she had shared her heart with was now standing in front of her. He looked nothing like she had imagined, yet his presence felt calm and steady. Lily smiled at him, her curiosity open and fearless. Claire wanted to close the door and let him in at the same time. She stood there caught between fear and hope. Ethan spoke gently, offering to look at the broken hinge. Claire hesitated, then slowly stepped aside. As he walked in, the air in the little house seemed to change. The mistake that had begun with a message had now brought a stranger to her doorstep. And in that moment, something new began. Ethan knelt by the broken door with the small toolkit he had brought. His hands were steady as he worked, tightening screws and fixing the hinge that had troubled Claire for weeks. Claire stood nearby, unsure how to act. She had not invited him into her life in this way, yet now he was there, quietly helping without asking for anything in return. Lily watched with wide eyes, handing Ethan tools whenever he asked. Her laughter filled the room, and it was the first time Claire had heard such joy around that door. When the work was done, Ethan wiped his hands and stood up. He looked at Claire with a calm smile and said, "The door should hold for a while now." Claire felt her throat tighten as she tried to thank him. It had been so long since someone had helped her without judgment. She offered him coffee, and though she felt nervous, he accepted with a nod. Soon they were sitting at the small kitchen table, with Lily humming softly as she drew pictures nearby. Ethan noticed the faded wallpaper, the chipped mugs, and the stack of bills on the counter. He did not judge. Instead, he listened as Claire spoke about her work, her long hours at the diner, and the small dreams she carried for Lily. She kept her words simple, careful not to reveal how hard life truly was, but Ethan could sense it between her sentences. He spoke about books he liked, about quiet walks he took, leaving out the details of his wealth. He wanted her to know him as a man, not as a millionaire. As the days passed, Ethan began to visit more often. Sometimes he came with small tools to fix things around the house. Sometimes he brought simple groceries, pretending they were extras he did not need. Claire protested at first, but Lily's excitement made it harder to refuse. Ethan never pushed. He simply showed up, offering his time and presence. Claire found herself softening, though she guarded her heart with care. One evening, Claire and Ethan sat on the porch, while Lily played with chalk on the steps. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft colors. Claire asked why he cared, why he had not walked away after receiving her message by mistake. Ethan paused before answering. He said he had spent many years surrounded by people but feeling alone. Her message had reminded him of what mattered, of honesty and heart. Claire looked at him, unsure how to respond, but she felt something stir inside her. Their worlds began to blend in small ways. Ethan found joy in the simple meals Claire cooked, meals made with little, yet filled with love. Claire noticed how patient he was with Lily, how he listened to her stories and encouraged her drawings. Lily started to ask when Ethan would visit next, and Claire tried not to let her heart race at the thought. For the first time in years, she felt like someone was standing beside her, sharing her weight. Still, doubts lingered in Claire's mind. She wondered who he really was, why a man like him would care about her life. She feared the day she might discover a truth that would break the fragile bond they had built. Yet each time he knocked on her door, those fears faded for a little while. She found herself smiling more, laughing with Lily, and looking forward to his presence. In Ethan's world, people measured value in wealth and power. In Claire's world, value was measured in love and survival. As they spent more time together, those two worlds began to collide in ways neither of them had expected. And though neither spoke it aloud, both began to wonder if this connection, born from a mistake, might be the beginning of something neither had ever dared to hope for. The weeks passed with quiet changes in Claire's small home. Lily spoke often of Ethan, asking when he would visit, showing him her drawings and pulling him into her little games. Claire tried not to read too much into it, but she could not hide the way her heart lifted whenever he knocked on the door. She was careful, always reminding herself that she did not know the full truth about him. Yet each time he smiled, her guard weakened. Ethan had never felt so at ease. He found himself looking forward to simple dinners of soup and bread, 2 evenings spent listening to Claire's stories and Lily's laughter. In his world, conversations were often about profit and power, but in this little house, the talk was real, honest, and full of life. He kept his secret carefully, never mentioning his wealth or the company that depended on him. He wanted them to know him for who he was, not what he owned. One afternoon, a neighbor stopped by while Ethan was fixing a loose step on Claire's porch. The neighbor, a woman who often gossiped, looked at Ethan with wide eyes. She asked Claire if she knew who he really was. Claire frowned, unsure what she meant. The neighbor whispered that Ethan was not just some kind man, but a wealthy businessman whose face had appeared in newspapers. She said Claire should be careful because men like him played games with hearts. Claire felt the ground shift beneath her. She looked at Ethan, who had gone still, the tool in his hand frozen. The neighbor walked away with a smug smile, leaving silence behind. Claire's chest tightened as she turned to Ethan. She asked if it was true. Ethan did not deny it. Set the tool aside and admitted that he had more than enough money, more than he would ever need. But he had never wanted to tell her because he feared she would see only the wealth and not the man. Claire's eyes filled with tears, not from joy, but from hurt. She asked why he had hidden it, why he had let her believe he was just a simple man who wanted to help. Ethan explained that he had been alone for so long, surrounded by people who wanted his money but not his heart. When her message came, raw and honest, he saw a chance to be seen for who he really was. He said he never meant to deceive her, only to protect the fragile bond they had built. Claire listened, torn between anger and sorrow. She had trusted him, allowed him into her home, into her daughter's life. Now she wondered if all of it had been pity, if he had helped her because she was poor and struggling while he lived in luxury. Ethan tried to tell her that it was never about pity, that he admired her strength more than anything. But the doubt in her heart grew heavy. She told him she needed time and asked him to leave. Ethan walked away slowly, his chest aching. For the first time in years, he had found something real, and now it was slipping away. Claire closed the door and leaned against it, her hands shaking. Lily came to her, confused, asking why Ethan was gone. Claire hugged her daughter tightly, unable to explain. She wanted to believe Ethan's words, but her pride and fear built a wall around her heart. That night, the house felt colder. Claire sat at the table, staring at the bills again, wondering if she had made a mistake in pushing him away. Yet she could not shake the thought that love should not come with secrets. Across the city, Ethan sat alone in his vast apartment, the silence pressing in harder than ever. Both of them longed for the connection they had shared, but the truth now stood between them, like an unmovable wall. Claire tried to carry on with her days, but the silence in the house grew heavier without Ethan. Lily asked often when he would come back. Claire only shook her head and told her daughter that he was busy. At night, when Lily was asleep, Claire sat awake thinking about him. She remembered the way he had fixed things around the house, the way he listened without judgment, and the way Lily laughed whenever he was near. She wanted to believe his words, but her heart was still wounded by the secret he had kept. Ethan spent his days surrounded by people, but feeling more alone than ever. Meetings filled his schedule, contracts and numbers crossed his desk, but nothing mattered. His thoughts always returned to Claire and Lily. He replayed every moment with them, every smile and every laugh, and each memory only deepened the ache in his chest. For years, he had been able to hide behind wealth and power. But now he felt powerless, unable to fix the one thing that truly mattered. Claire began avoiding her phone, afraid that she might see a message from him. She told herself it was better this way, that she had to protect her heart and her daughter. But the truth was, she missed him more than she wanted to admit. She missed the kindness in his voice, the calm in his presence, and the way he made her feel less alone. Her pride held her back, keeping her from reaching out. Lily, however, did not understand pride or fear. She only knew she missed her friend. One evening, while Claire was in the kitchen, Lily found her mother's phone. With careful fingers, she typed a small note to Ethan. She wrote that she missed him, that the house felt quiet without him, and that she hoped he would come back. She sent the message before Claire even noticed. When Ethan read the note, his heart broke and healed at the same time. He saw the simple words of a child who only spoke the truth. He knew then that he could not stay away. No matter how much pain or doubt stood between him and Claire, he had to fight for them. Could not let fear take away the family he had never thought he deserved. The next day, Ethan stood outside Claire's home once more. He hesitated before knocking, afraid she might turn him away. But he remembered Lily's words, and with a deep breath, he lifted his hand and knocked. Claire opened the door, her eyes widening in surprise. For a long moment, they only stared at each other. Claire felt her heart race, torn between slamming the door and pulling him inside. Ethan spoke first. He told her about Lily's message, about how much he missed them, about how he was not there as a rich man but as someone who loved them. His voice was steady, but but his eyes held the weight of his fear. Claire listened, her chest tightening with every word. She wanted to believe him, but the wound of his hidden truths still hurt. He told her he would prove himself, not with money or gifts, but with his presence. He promised to stand beside her through the hard days and the simple ones, to share the weight she carried. He said he had built walls around himself for years, but she and Lily had broken them without even trying. Now he wanted nothing more than to be part of their lives. Claire felt tears rising, her guard breaking little by little. She looked at Ethan and saw not a wealthy man, but the same person who had fixed her broken door, who had listened late at night, who had made Lily laugh. She stood in silence, unsure if she was ready to let him back in, but deep inside, she knew her heart was already leaning toward him. Claire stood at the door with Ethan waiting for her answer. The air between them felt heavy, filled with everything left unsaid. Lily peeked from behind her mother, her small eyes bright with hope. Claire looked at her daughter, then back at Ethan, her heart caught between fear and longing, letting him in. The moment he crossed the threshold, the house seemed warmer. Ethan sat at the kitchen table while Claire poured water into 2 glasses. Her hands trembled slightly as she set one in front of him. Neither spoke at first. Finally, Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He showed her the very first message she had sent, the desperate words meant for her brother. He told her he had kept it not because of her pain, but because it reminded him that honesty still existed in the world. He said that message had changed him, waking a part of him he thought was gone. Claire listened, her throat tight. She remembered that night, the loneliness, the shame of sending those words. She had thought it was a mistake, but now she wondered if it had been fate. Ethan spoke with such honesty that her anger began to fade. She asked him why he wanted to stay when he could have anything, when he could live without struggle. Ethan's answer was simple. He said none of the wealth meant anything if he had no one to share it with, and with her and Lily, he had finally felt alive. Lily climbed onto Ethan's lap, as if she already knew the choice her mother was afraid to make. She wrapped her small arms around his neck and whispered that she had missed him. Ethan held her gently, his eyes glistening. Claire's heart softened at the sight. No man had ever cared for her daughter the way he did. She realized then that whatever doubts she carried, his love for Lily was real, and that truth mattered more than fear. Ethan looked at Claire and told her he was not promising an easy life, but he was promising a true one. He wanted to stand with her through hard days, not rescue her with wealth, but share her burdens and joys. He admitted he was still learning how to love, but he was willing to try every day if she would let him. His words were not polished or grand, but they were filled with sincerity. Claire felt tears slip down her cheeks. She had built walls to protect herself, but here was a man who was not trying to tear them down with force, only waiting patiently on the other side. She took a deep breath and told him she was scared, but she did not want to live in fear anymore. She said she wanted to believe that even mistakes could lead to miracles. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand, his touch steady and warm. That night, as the 3 of them sat together, Claire felt something she had not felt in years. She knew life would still be hard at times, but she also knew she would not face it alone. Ethan had come into her life by accident, but now it felt like destiny. Their hearts were tied together by an invisible thread, a soul string pulling them closer no matter how far they tried to stay apart. Outside, the night was quiet. Inside, laughter began to fill the small home again. Claire leaned against Ethan as Lily showed them another drawing. In that simple moment, the past struggles seemed distant, and the future, though uncertain, felt brighter. Love had found them not through perfection, but through honesty, mistakes, and the courage to trust. And for Claire, Ethan and Lily, that was enough to begin a new life together.